How was your day?
That was all right.
Did you get a chance to talk to John at all about retirement?
Yeah, I talked to John. I actually talked to John a couple of days ago.
And what did he say?
We agreed that I'd work through to the end of the year. After that, January 1, I'm a free man.
So, January we can go to Cancun. So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, you are looking forward to that, aren't you?
I am.
You know, Brenda, I have some different ideas about that.
We don't have to go to Cancun right away?
That's not really what I meant, Brenda. I've been doing this job for 40 years. I put half my life on the shelf. I need some time for me. Brenda, I want a divorce.
Divorce is like a powerful tornado. It is terrifying and wields a wide path of damage and destruction. The aftermath of divorce leaves pain that seems like it will never go away.
Waves of depression would hit me. I was devastated.
Every day I woke up and I had a knot in my stomach.
I felt like stripped of everything.
Oh, you're just disposable.
I felt a deep sense of loss and a sense of failure.
You know, I remember saying one time, Lord, if this is how you treat your children, I don't want to be one of your enemies.
And as you sort through the devastating effects of divorce on your family, you're overwhelmed by questions that seem to have no answers.
Am I not sexy enough? Lord, what do I say? What do I do? Is it my personality?
How am I going to do it?
As you survey the wreckage in your life, you become distraught over a hopeless future.
I've always been a pretty good girl. You know, I never did drugs. I never really drank. I never smoked. I'm just this good little girl who obeyed her mom and dad, and I'm in a county health department getting tested for HIV.
I didn't think that she could hurt that much and not be dying.
Hello, I'm Steve Grissom, your host for the Divorce Care Program. Like you, I've been through the pain of separation and divorce. I understand how deeply it can affect every part of your life, from your emotions, your family and friends, your finances, and your physical health. Now, you probably came to this group because you know you can't get through this yourself. So that's why we're here. We want to help you rebuild your life after the devastation of separation or divorce. Over the next 13 sessions, we will introduce you to top experts on divorce recovery. You will also meet people just like you who tell their stories, share their struggles, their pain, and the things that help them heal. Behind me, you see a neighborhood nearly destroyed by a violent tornado. The storm tore through North Carolina, leaving a trail of destruction, damaged or leveled homes, and shattered lives. In moments, people living in the path of this storm saw everything upended. And it's likely that right now you are feeling something similar has happened in your life to your family. You are numb, like the victims of the tornado that hit the homes on this street. But there is hope for the people who lived here. Even after all seemed lost, this community is coming back to life. And as hopeless as your life may seem right now, you too can rediscover hope. We are here to help you heal from the emotional storm that has ripped through your marriage and your life. So thanks for joining us, and welcome to Divorce Care.
Your host for this series is Steve Grissom. Steve has been divorced and understands the difficult issues you face. After going through his divorce, Steve founded Divorce Care and Divorce Care for Kids. He's now remarried and lives in the Raleigh, North Carolina area with his wife Cheryl. Cheryl has also been divorced and is the co-founder of Divorce Care. Your divorce care experience consists of 3 essential components, all designed to help you heal from the pain of divorce. Each of the 13 sessions will include a video like the one you're watching. You'll hear from top experts on divorce issues, and you'll also hear from people who've been through separation and divorce. After viewing the video sessions, you'll enter into a small group discussion about the information you've seen. You'll also have the opportunity to share about what challenges you're facing. But please relax. You don't have to talk in this group if you don't want to. Just hearing what others are going through can be encouraging. So plan to stay through the discussion. A crucial component to your divorce care experience is your workbook. To get the most out of this course, you need your own copy, and be sure to bring it each week. You'll need your workbook to take notes on the videos. The workbook outline corresponds to the material presented in the videos. Plus, it contains daily exercises that share the stories of others who've been through divorce. If you have questions about how to get a workbook, speak to your group leader. And with that, we're ready to begin. So here's your host, Steve Grissom.
We want to begin today by addressing the question, why does divorce hurt so much? Before we get underway, though, we'd like to give you a snapshot of what you will see on the videos. This is the third edition of Divorce Care, and much of the material is new. But we've also included some of the time-tested and most popular clips from previous editions. And while fashions and hairstyles may have changed, don't assume they are not relevant. In fact, when you see a Divorce Care Classic clip, you should pay even more attention to what's being said, because group members have told us it's the most helpful video from earlier editions of Divorce Care. So now let's begin. Turn to page 1 in your workbook so that you can take notes as we go along. Divorce will affect you in many ways, some of which are very obvious and some of which may surprise you. One of the most common reactions to divorce is intense personal pain.
I hurt so bad I became numb.
When I got back in my car at the end of the day, driving home, and that almost a panic attack would set in.
Picturing your wife, your spouse with someone different, doing what you used to do with them, it was something of much hurt.
Over time, the numbness turned to hurt, tremendous hurt. And then from that, it went to anger.
And I had gone over to visit the kids, and I was getting ready to knock on the apartment door, and I could see in, and I saw them sitting on the couch together, and her hand on his leg, and the kids sitting in front of them, and they were all watching TV. And I just turned around, and I jumped in the car. I was going to head to the police station because I just thought this was a crime.
Because you are hurting so deeply when you are in the middle of separation or divorce, you'll often feel like your emotions are out of control.
I'm a very easygoing, just kind of stable person. I'm not moody. You kind of know what you're going to get with me. And man, I was crying all the time.
It just drains, takes the life out of you.
And then I'd go into an anger fit, and I was just not myself.
I remember driving to work asking myself, how would it be? I was living up in the mountain area, up in Tennessee, and I was thinking, how would it feel driving off this mountain? And the only thing that kept me alive was knowing that if I did that, my ex-wife would be taking care of my kids.
I would go to work and have to pretend that, here I was happy, and I just was running on empty.
It got to the point that the doctor wanted to hospitalize me. They wanted to put me in a coma. They felt that if they put me in a coma, it would give my mind time to rest and relax, and the doctor recommended it. The lawyers said, don't do it, they'll take your kids.
It was totally devastating.
I was shocked, I was angry, and I was confused.
The people were like, oof, something's wrong with that girl.
One thing that contributes to the instability in your life right now is the day-to-day uncertainty caused by your separation or divorce.
So much of the rhythm and routine of our life, what we expect in day-to-day interaction, is founded out of that rhythm that comes out of our home. And there is a sense of suspense. Even if the marriage was unhealthy, it probably was predictably unhealthy. And now that we're going through divorce, a lot of life becomes unpredictable. And when you take our home and you break it apart, we are coming home to something new and different. We don't know what we're going to find, what message is going to be on the answering machine, what letter may be in the mailbox, what response that we get from our kids.
After my former wife and I separated, I went to great lengths to keep the separation a secret from the people I worked with and all but my closest friends and family. I was embarrassed and ashamed, and I was hoping we could reconcile without people knowing about the breakup. And, as I've come to understand, that's a common reaction.
I felt ashamed to tell my family.
I would see families around me, and I would see the church leadership and how they looked like they had it all together, and these loving families with the husband and the wife and the children, and I felt shame within myself because I didn't have that anymore.
I felt that I should have been on the Jerry Springer show.
I felt like I'd really disappointed them.
In other words, I did not feel this does not happen to people that love the Lord.
I had a whole lot of preconceived notions about what it meant to be divorced or why people got divorced. And I wasn't one of those people. So now that I am going to be, I'm really struggling with the shame of that.
Sometimes someone would say to me, "Oh, where's your husband?" or "What does your husband do?" And then trying to figure out how to say, "Well, I'm divorced" or "I'm separated," and it would make the conversation very awkward.
And you feel very much like you stick out.
Now, when you're going through a divorce, you often feel exhausted, having barely enough energy to function. Let me show you why. This is the ideal, an equal distribution of energy across the spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional areas of your life. You may temporarily borrow energy reserved from another category, but you quickly return to balance. But during separation and divorce, the way your body allocates energy changes dramatically. Everything gets out of balance. As much as 85% of your energy is diverted to dealing with the emotional upheaval in your life, leaving only 15% to deal with all of the other spiritual, mental, and physical demands on you.
Fatigue, experience fatigue. That's a very common effect when you're under emotional duress.
I didn't have any energy.
Some days I just didn't want to get out of bed. I'd try to sleep and I couldn't.
I probably didn't sleep for at least 3 to 6 months after we had split up.
Of course, that's going to then exacerbate, make the fatigue even worse.
When the girls left, I just slept. When the girls were there, I laid on the couch a lot.
No energy and then no sleep, and then I'd get hyper.
I was wondering, is this normal?
I feel like I'm more fatigued after a difficult day of counseling or parenting. So imagine a much larger life event affecting every part of your life.
The stress of divorce can also have a negative effect on your health.
I was terrified when I signed the final divorce papers.
You're thinking about custody of your child, you're thinking about your finances, you're thinking about your emotions, that you've lost your spouse, you've lost your in-laws.
I honestly did not know how I was going to survive as a single mom. I was paralyzed many days with fear because not only did I go through a divorce, but I was also fighting for my life. I had been given a 2% chance to be alive in 10 years because of a recurrence of breast cancer.
I would go to sleep at night and thinking that I was going to sleep all night through. And I would wake up 10 to 15 minutes into my sleep. But it felt like it was an hour or 2 hours into my sleep. And I'd be awake and jarred awake and fearful.
People who are under a lot of stress sometimes get depressed. They can't think clearly. They can't make decisions like they used to.
I was anxious. It was things that I had somewhat suppressed during the day would come back and try to kind of trigger me.
And one thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is I believe that stress can wear you down physically.
Because when we're under stress, our body begins to break down and we're much more vulnerable to illness.
It seems like the last few months I've been more prone to, getting colds or whatever the bug may be that's going around. So I'm really, the last few months, trying to focus on being sure I get as much rest as I can and eat as healthy as I can to try to boost my immunity going forward.
So with your emotions out of control and your body going haywire, it's no surprise that it's hard to get anything done. Sometimes it can be alarming at how little you're able to accomplish during the day. But keep in mind that this is a normal response after you've been through the upheaval of a divorce.
And it's frightening. You begin to feel like, I go to work and I can't even concentrate on what I'm doing. I'm losing an account.
Because your mind, you're just constantly trying to think of ways to get your life back.
I was trying to learn a new job at the same time when my marriage is falling apart.
And through that process, you're not able to do your work.
My review came up and they said, well, you're not getting a salary increase this year because your performance has been very poor.
I wouldn't cry or anything, but I would just be space out for a little bit.
And I don't think I realized how poor my performance was.
After Liz went through a divorce, she had a hard time remembering the things she needed to do just to take care of her kids and to get to work each day. So she came up with a simple way to remind herself.
I was basically in survival mode. I would have to write lists of things to do and wake up, make sure your kids are dressed. And so that was kind of good though, just sort of going through the motions and knowing, okay, I've got to get them up at this time, I got to eat, I got to get food. And so that for a while was about all I could do.
After a divorce, it's likely you will get a lot of questions from friends and family. They want to know what happened and why and who's to blame. But the reality is that you probably have more questions than they do. And in most cases, you don't have any good answers. You are just as confused as they are.
I can remember working at Lone Star, living off welfare. Here I am, a single parent in South Bend, Indiana, and I was smoking cigarette after cigarette after cigarette saying, how did I end up here?
What did I do to deserve this? How did I contribute to this? How did I drive my husband or wife away from me?
I went through bank statements trying to find infidelity or any answer that I could find because the excuses I was getting didn't add up.
What if I would have been more chilled out? Would it have lasted?
You go to God and you ask him, why is this happening to me? Why don't you, if it's the wrong thing, why don't you go ahead and try to fix the problem, make her see what's right.
I really, to this day, can't really tell you why he walked away.
Now, sometimes you just need to stop asking questions because in the bigger scheme of things, the answers don't help you recover.
I do think there are some times where questions are important. I mean, there are times where you probably do need to know, well, was it my best friend or, was it somebody I knew or, there are questions like that, but do you need to know if they met in a hotel, which hotel was it, what was she wearing, who, what, when, where, what'd you do, how'd you do it, what'd she look like? It's what we want to know. We want to know, when were you making a fool of me? Was it when I was raising your children? Was it when I was at work, helping provide for our family? I finally had to get to the place where I quit asking the questions that were not helping my healing. Because when you ask questions, the answers are either going to help your healing or hinder it. And these were hindering it.
It finally took, probably a year after the divorce to finally come to grips that I'm not going to get an answer.
Details like that are not going to help you heal.
And I've got to be able to move on and not harp on needing an answer and just trusting God that God's got a plan for where I am and where I'm going.
And when they would come to my mind and when I would want to know things, I would just not ask and I would go to my Father, my Heavenly Father, and beg for Him to get me through so that I would not ask that question.
Just let it go.
When you watch television and movies, you get the idea that people recover from divorce rather quickly, separated and divorced on Friday and ready for life and work on Monday. Well, you know that's not realistic, but you still may be confused by how long it's taking you to deal with the pain of divorce. And it doesn't help that family and friends are pressuring you to move on.
You have this wave of hurt, and it's so big, and it just slams you, and it crushes, and you stand back up, and you try to take care of it, and the next thing you know, another wave hits you and slams you with hurt.
You go to sleep at night, you wake up, you're still thinking about it.
Am I ever going to recover from this? Will I ever stop crying?
When somebody dies, you can go to the funeral and bury that person and go through the process of grieving. But if they're still living, then it feels like there's never really any closure.
Waves keep changing. They're also combining with other waves. So now you have the hurt of loneliness, and then you got the hurt of jealousy and abandonment and rejection and all these hurts.
We tended to think that grieving any loss went on this sort of linear pattern, but loss isn't like that. Grief isn't like that.
And there's often this thought, certainly a wish, that I could somehow accelerate my recovery and my healing. But there is not anything that you can do to speed it up.
Another way to look at it is, if you're a marathon runner and you run 26 miles and you have open heart surgery, how long do you think it's going to be before you can jog again? How long before you can run a mile? How long before you can run a marathon? And when you put it in physical terms, people can relate to say, well, it may take 4 or 5 years. For a marathon runner to recover from open heart surgery. Divorce is open heart surgery, emotionally. And people are not willing to give that enough time, and their expectations for recovery are too fast. And when you get up and go faster than you're supposed to, and you push your healing cycle too quick, you get to do it over again. And you get a relapse. And then now, what would normally take 5 years is going to take 6 or 7, because you've done more damage to yourself in the process. And I think that expectation of rapid recovery is the most devastating thing that you can do after divorce.
If a tornado leveled your home like it did those in this neighborhood, you'd expect to miss your old place. Nobody would be surprised that you still have affection for the home you lost. Now, your marriage might be ending because of the cruel behavior of a former spouse. Even so, you may be surprised that you have feelings of affection for your ex that can bubble up even after the split.
How do I understand that these competing feelings? Well, I think that's the reality of having been in a committed relationship and then having it break up. So there's genuine affection, there's genuine desire to have been in relationship for that person for life. That's why you entered marriage. At the same time, there's also betrayal and heartache. And so these, if you will, competing feelings are common after divorce. I experienced some of these things in parenting when my children sin against me in a bold way. I don't like that. At the same time, I have affection for them. There's competition in terms of what's going on in my own heart. That's all the more, I think, ramped up when you've been in relationship with someone, and that is now ended not by your choice.
But maybe it's not affection you feel right now. For some of you, separation or divorce has brought more relief than stress. You may wonder why, or if it's even appropriate.
When it was over, I really did feel like it was a death, because it was. It was a death of something I really felt God had called me to, and it grieved me that it was over. Once it was over, I felt a huge relief.
One of the more surprising and unsettling emotions is the experience of relief. And for some folks who are coming out of an abusive or highly unhealthy relationship, they understand that. But for many people who did not want the divorce, they begin to get towards the end or past the end of the divorce, and they have this sense of relief, and it unsettles them. And I think there's some things that make that an understandable experience. One of those is that divorce is a very long, drawn-out process. There is a lot of legal battle and litigation that we go through in the process of a divorce. It is a marathon to go through a divorce. And at the end of that, even if we didn't want it, there's a sense of, whew, I can stop fighting. I can stop talking to attorneys. I don't have to measure every word that I say. I don't have to think about, is this going to be recorded? If I leave my spouse a voicemail, is that going to wind up in an affidavit somewhere? There is a sense of relief that comes with that. There's also a sense of, I can begin to plan my life again.
Our home became a sanctuary for us. It became a very happy place. It became a very peaceful place. And so it wasn't that I walked around jumping for joy and having parties and those kinds of things, but there was just a real sense of peace.
And so that sense of relief is one that we can very easily begin to feel guilty about if we don't understand why it's coming. But hopefully by looking at why relief can make sense at the end of a journey like divorce, we can let go of some of that guilt and recognize that relief doesn't mean this is something that I wanted.
Amber was married for 4 years when she discovered her husband's infidelity. The severity of her pain surprised her.
I found out on my 30th birthday, and I was blindsided. Emotionally, I was shattered. Physically, again, I didn't know that you could feel that amount of pain. Physically hurt that much. I mean, the pain in your chest and in your stomach and the knots and anxiety and live.
Crushed by her husband's betrayal, she was surprised at how she responded.
Rather than lashing out at him necessarily, I actually turned inward and I did a lot of self-blaming and I questioned, did I cause this? Was it my fault? You know, a lot of those questions. And it made me feel like I was losing my mind.
Adding to her confusion were her feelings for her husband.
It wasn't easy to stop loving him, but his actions and his choices and his decisions and his reactions, little by little took away that love.
On the verge of finalizing her divorce, Amber has these words of advice for those grieving their marriages.
There's no way to heal from the hurt of a divorce without just feeling it, or without feeling it. And first, you have to acknowledge it. And then you have to feel it. You sort of have to sit in it and grieve it. And then you let it go.
A lot of times when people are going through a marriage difficulty, they want to know what to do. Like, what are the steps they need to take to get better? And I think the first step is you have to acknowledge where you are. You have to acknowledge the truth of what's happening. And if you're not going to embrace the truth, if you're going to deny it, you're going to minimize it, you're going to bury it, you're not going to be able to do the work that you need to do. And so you're not going to be able to get the appropriate help you need if you're not able to say what it is and see what it is and accept the truth.
After some people come to the point where they accept the painful reality of their divorce, they mistakenly conclude that jumping into a new romantic relationship is the best thing for them.
I had some ways that I would try and numb pain. And what that looked like for me, one was men.
I wanted flesh. I wanted somebody that could hold me. And I made some really bad decisions.
Another relationship is like Novocaine for the heart. It is the easiest, quickest, slickest way to do away with the pain.
You want to prove that you can still woo a woman.
But it's sort of like having a broken foot, and you can take a shot of Novocaine in your foot after you break it, and you can still walk, and you can keep right on walking. And you can look around and say, you know, I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. I'm not hurting through this at all. And one day you look down, you see these white bones sticking through the skin of your foot, and you realize that you've done a lot more damage to yourself with the Novocaine than if you put a cast around it, protected it, put some structure to it.
If a tornado severely damages your home, it is uninhabitable Because you can't live in it, you'll need to make temporary arrangements for a place to live. And the temporary home probably won't be as comfortable as the one you lost, so you'll have to reset your expectations. And after separation or divorce, you'll need to do something similar. You'll need to rethink how much you can get done from day to day.
I tried to measure up to other people's expectations of me, and you can't do that. You fail every time.
I realized early on that I was going to have to give myself a little bit of grace and be patient with myself.
Today, number 8 on my to-do list won't get done, and I'm not going to beat myself up about it.
I remember very vividly when we moved into an apartment, I was trying to put together a shelf. And I'm usually pretty good with that sort of thing, but could not keep the pieces together while I was trying to fasten them together. Kept clattering on the floor, metal shelf, clattering on the floor over and over again. I read the directions a little more closely, and the directions said, note, this part of the process requires 2 people. And that's sort of a metaphor for what it feels like sometimes you're trying to do the work of 2 people with 1 person.
You have to learn to let some things go. I'm only 1 person, and there's always tomorrow.
I think you need to just sort of know that you're on a roller coaster right now, or you're on a boat in the middle of a hurricane, and you just hang on, and you let yourself ride with it without thinking that you need to do it better than you're doing it. Sometimes just getting through it is all you need to do.
We are here because we want to help you heal, but there is one thing we'd like to ask of you. Commit to attending at least 3 sessions of divorce care. Participating for 3 sessions will give you enough perspective to make a decision about whether this group is right for you. Listen now to the stories of some people who made that commitment and what they have to say about their involvement with divorce care.
If it weren't for divorce care, I'd be dead.
Well, my family was very supportive. They couldn't understand what I was going through. So having someone else say, I understand, was a big deal.
For those of you who travel in a foreign country and you're surrounded by, a language that's not your own, and you round a corner and all of a sudden you hear your language. It's like, there's home. It's the same thing.
I still love my husband, but I couldn't admit that to others. And so when I was able to admit that to a group, and them to understand and say, yeah, I still love my husband or my wife, and I can't just let those feelings go. I have to grieve that, was a comfort to know that I wasn't crazy.
Going into it, it was more like, all right, let me kind of labor through it and see what I could get out of it.
I remember the first night I was very scared, very nervous.
I didn't want to go because I hadn't faced the reality of what was happening. And then when I got there, it hit me, bam, divorce. I cried the whole night.
Being the police officer that I am, I walked in like, I'm big and bad. I'm gonna walk in. I don't really need this. So I just sat down and they're like, "Tell us your situation." I'm like, "I'm good. I carry a gun. I don't need help. You guys go ahead." I didn't want to talk. I just sit back and listen.
Through years of a troubled marriage, I numbed myself to a lot of emotions just to survive every day.
Just to be able to sit down and people say, how do y'all handle this? There's no judging. They can't judge. They can't point the finger at you because they're in the same boat.
And going to divorce care was the opportunity to finally step through all those emotions in order to heal.
Everybody was just so supportive. They really didn't press me to talk, but they would hand me a tissue and, hug you, and you just knew that they said, I understand. You knew that they understood.
I was like, I don't need this. But I did. It was awesome.
I hope those comments encouraged you, but I also know that many of you were a little nervous and apprehensive about coming to this group today. Before your marriage imploded, you probably would have never imagined joining a divorce support group. So, you're in a new environment with people you don't know. Now, on top of that, you're not sure what will come next. Well, keep this in mind. You already have some things in common with the rest of the people in this room, including the fact that they may be as nervous as you. Divorce Care is designed so that you will be a part of a small group discussion after you watch the video for that session. While you may be apprehensive about that part of the meeting, we encourage you to relax. Most people tell us the group discussion is one of the most helpful and healing parts of the program. And there's no pressure. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You will gain a lot as you listen to other group members talk about their experiences. And you'll be encouraged by people who may be farther along in the divorce journey and can offer you some hope. And your group leaders have a deep commitment to creating a warm, caring environment. So we think that by the end of the session, you'll believe it was time well spent. There's one more thing I'd like to mention before we transition to your group discussion. We've talked about how Divorce Care will help you, but if you have children, it's also essential that you help them recover as well. One way you can help your children is connect them with our Divorce Care for Kids program, or DC4K as we call it. It's designed to operate in parallel with the Adult Divorce Care group. Talk with your leaders and find out if this church sponsors a DC4K group.
Take time to complete this week's On My Own section in your Divorce Care Workbook. It's filled with comforting insights that will give you peace of mind. Plus, this week's On My Own exercises explain how author Georgia Schaefer survived her divorce. Don't have a Divorce Care Workbook? Talk to your group leader. He or she can show you how to get one. In the next Divorce Care session, we'll explore how long it will take you to heal from your divorce and learn more about why your pain is so deep.
You've lost dreams, you've lost finances.
I had people that I was very close to that thought I was dying.
Find out in the next session of Divorce Care.
As you can see, people were more than willing to help these tornado victims rebuild their homes. And in the same way, we're here to help you recover from the pain of divorce and help you rebuild your life. So there is hope, and over the next 13 weeks, we want to help you heal, recover, and grow.
Thank you so much for coming to Divorce Care today. Even if you found it hard to come to the group, we hope you'll come back next time. You'll learn new information about recovering from your divorce, and you'll have more opportunities to share with the new friends you made in your discussion group. We'll see you then.